Welcome back to the deep dive. You know that feeling, right? You're scrolling through channels, or maybe you're just chatting with friends and someone mentions The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. And just like that, you're kind of sucked in by the glamour, the romance, the absolute undeniable drama of it all. It's a phenomenon, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, it's that quintessential guilty pleasure, right? You know you're watching it, your friends are watching it, and it keeps millions of us hooked, season after season. But there's always that little whisper, isn't there? That feeling that something might be a little too perfect on screen, or perhaps a little too dramatic to be entirely real.
Exactly. And today we are diving headfirst into that very contrast. We're going to unpack the fascinating and honestly sometimes pretty troubling realities behind the roses in The Bachelor and The Bachelorette franchise. We've gone through a stack of sources that pull back the curtain on everything from producer manipulation tactics to the contestants' very real and often surprising experiences, and even the intricate legal landscape these shows navigate.
Our mission today is really to extract those most important nuggets of knowledge for you, giving you that shortcut to truly being well-informed about how this reality TV behemoth, as you called it, really operates.
Yeah.
We're asking, are we as viewers watching a genuine love story unfold? Or is it, as one source so aptly put it, a carefully engineered game show with mystery rules?
Ooh, a game show with mystery rules. I love that. It really does capture the essence, doesn't it? So let's unpack this. Our first big section is all about the crafted narrative, how production pulls the strings. And when we talk about that illusion of authenticity, it truly begins with what happens in the editing room. It's really wild.
It absolutely does. One of the primary and frankly quite notorious editing tactics is what's known as frankenbiting.
Oh.
Have you heard about this particular technique?
I have, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of our listeners probably have too, but for those who might not have come across it before, it's like when they piece together little snippets of audio, right, to make someone say something they didn't actually say, or not in that context at least.
Precisely. You've got it. It's taking random audio clips, sometimes even from completely different conversations or interviews, and splicing them together to manipulate a contestant's comments. The goal is always to make them sound dramatic, more interesting, or quite often just plain ominous. Our sources provide some pretty concrete and, I have to say, quite shocking examples. Think back to Claire Crawley, for instance, on Bachelor in Paradise. Remember that iconic scene where she was seemingly having this deep emotional conversation with a raccoon?
Oh my gosh, yes. That was so memorable. She was like pouring her heart out to this creature. It was just wild.
Well, according to our sources, she was actually talking to a producer off camera.
No.
Yeah, and the raccoon was just spliced in later, purely for comedic and perhaps somewhat manipulative effect.
Are you kidding me? That's amazing, and also incredibly deceptive at the same time. You never would have guessed.
Right. And it gets even more subtle, but equally manipulative. Take Blake Moynes, for example. In the promotional clips for Katie Thurston's season, he was shown saying he isn't in love. It was a huge dramatic teaser, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I remember that, creating a stir.
But when the actual episode aired, it became abundantly clear that his words were carefully sliced together to convey a completely different meaning than what those teasers so heavily suggested. It's the context that changes everything.
Oh, okay. That makes total sense why teasers can be so incredibly misleading sometimes. Like, they know exactly what they're doing to create that dramatic buildup.
They do. It's a masterclass in misdirection. You also see it, for instance, in subtle voice pitch changes. A sharp-eared Reddit user actually noticed that Michael A's voice pitch noticeably changed when he said Blake's name during an interview.
Really?
Yeah, strongly indicating the two separate sentences were combined to create a single new statement. And then, remember Hunter? There was a moment where he supposedly snorted during an in-the-moment interview, but his face didn't even move. It was just an audio insert.
Laugh slightly. That's just so bizarre. The level of detail you have to pay attention to. So, for us, for the listeners, is there a way to, like, spot this stuff in real time beyond, just being a super sleuth Reddit user?
Well, experts and former contestants offer some pretty useful advice. The general rule of thumb, they suggest, is if we don't see it leave their mouth, there's a high likelihood it's been spliced or frankenbitten.
Okay, so watch their lips, basically.
Exactly. Apparently, paying very close attention to the cohesiveness of a contestant's pitch and the spacing between words can be quite revealing. Some even suggest listening with headphones because it makes those subtle audio edits even more apparent.
Wow, that's some serious next-level critical viewing right there. So this obviously has a massive impact on how we, the audience, perceive these people, doesn't it? I mean, it can literally turn them into villains, right?
Absolutely. It can completely change viewer perceptions very quickly, creating villains out of individuals like Blake Horseman or Hunter, as you mentioned. And it raises serious questions about the spread of misinformation and character assassination through editing. It's a remarkably powerful tool, and it's not just about frankenbiting. Producers also routinely reframe entire situations, changing the entire context of an event.
Give me an example of that, because that sounds even more insidious than just swapping out a few words.
Okay, so here's a perfect example. On Bachelor in Paradise Season 6, Blake Horseman was shown on camera essentially running away when Kellen Miller Keyes arrived on the beach. The edit, obviously, made it appear as though he was running from their past hookup at Stagecoach, playing up the intense drama of it all.
Right, I remember that. It looked like pure panic.
But what our sources reveal is that Blake was actually running to the bathroom because, as he put it, he had to pee really bad.
Laughs. Oh my gosh. The mundane, almost embarrassing truth behind the grand drama. That is amazing. But also, again, it totally messes with someone's reputation and perception. I mean, he literally ran from the drama, but the actual reason was so human.
It does. It shapes their narratives, often in a very negative light. And that can have lasting real-world implications for their reputation, their relationships, and their mental health long after the show has aired.
Yeah.
It's not just fleeting entertainment for them.
So beyond the editing suite, which is already a minefield, what about the direct manipulation that happens while they're actually filming, like on set, in the moment?
Right. And this is where it arguably gets a little more unsettling and, in some cases, truly questionable. Alcohol, for instance, is a tool that's actively leveraged. Former producer Michael Carroll admitted that from season 1, alcohol was free-flowing.
Oh.
And female contestants were, quite overtly encouraged to be drinking champagne until they're blotto. That's his word, not mine.
Wow, blotto. That's a strong word to describe the state they want contestants in. So this environment of heavy drinking, it really just persisted for years.
It did, for a very long time. While it's certainly meant to provide liquid courage for contestants to open up, which undeniably makes for compelling, uninhibited television, it also led to truly disastrous results. Many listeners might remember the BIP Season 4 sexual misconduct allegations involving DeMario Jackson and Corinne Olympios. That was a huge controversy.
Yes, I do remember that. It caused a massive stir and even halted production, didn't it?
It did. And in the wake of that incident, ABC supposedly implemented a 2-drink-per-hour limit for contestants.
Supposedly.
Exactly. But, our sources indicate there are significant doubts about whether that limit is consistently enforced in recent seasons. As Chris Bukowski, a frequent franchise alum, famously quipped, "In Paradise, it's always 5 o'clock. There's often not much else for them to do, which encourages more drinking."
So they're just like perpetually tipsy, confined, and probably bored. That's a recipe for something, certainly. Drama, I guess.
What other tactics do producers employ to directly influence contestants in the moment?
Another significant tactic is what they call the time wear down. Viewers, we see maybe an hour and a half of content per episode, but producers film tons of hours of raw footage. They use incredibly long, exhausting interviews to wear down contestants and elicit specific, often emotional responses.
How long are we talking?
Charlene Joint from season 18 revealed that her interviews would routinely stretch for an hour, with producers relentlessly pressuring her to say she was falling in love with Juan Pablo Galavis even if she wasn't feeling it yet.
An hour? That's an incredibly long time to be interrogated under bright lights about your feelings for someone you barely know.
It is. And Chris Bukowski, who, as we said, was on the show multiple times, admitted to simply parroting back lines that producers fed him.
Just repeating what they wanted. Yeah, purely because he just wanted to leave after hours of interrogation. It's really designed to break down resistance, like a police-style interrogation tactic. And it's unfortunately very effective at getting the sound bites they need.
And I've heard about the limo ride thing, too. Is that part of this wear-down tactic, where they drive eliminated contestants around for ages?
Yes, absolutely. It's a classic example. Producers will deliberately drive freshly eliminated contestants around for what seems like ages in the back of a limo, specifically to wear them down and, to elicit tears for the camera. They want that raw emotional reaction, and they're willing to exhaust someone to get it. It's pretty ruthless when you think about it.
Wow. And then probably one of the most disturbing tactics is the weaponization of personal details and trauma. That just sounds awful.
It truly is. Contestants undergo this incredibly rigorous screening process before they even get on the show, where they're required to reveal deeply personal, often traumatic details about their lives. Producers, according to former producer Michael Carroll, wield these details like a weapon to provoke intense emotional responses.
Like bringing up old wounds on purpose.
Exactly. He explicitly admitted they had a lot of tactics on how to get a girl to cry on camera and were, in his words, wrecking them psychologically by bringing up their hot buttons.
So they're not just hoping for tears, they're intentionally trying to make people cry, using their vulnerabilities against them.
Absolutely. Brooks Forrester, who self-eliminated from The Bachelorette Season 9, described a particularly chilling example. He recounted how producers would bring up childhood trauma or family issues, get him really riled up and emotionally raw, and then immediately pivot back to his Bachelor journey.
So the tears looked like they were about the show.
Precisely. The edited show, of course, would then make him appear emotional about the lead, when he was, in reality, upset about deeply personal past issues that were deliberately triggered.
That is incredibly manipulative and, frankly, unethical when you consider the mental well-being of the individual. And I've heard about this trauma pitch, too, where they pressure contestants to share deeply personal stories very early on.
Yes, that's a disturbing development noted by Shauna Springer, a PhD and licensed psychologist who studies the show. She calls it the trauma pitch, where there's an unchecked expectation for contestants to reveal their deepest traumas during their very first one-on-one conversations with the lead.
Wow, first conversation.
Yeah. It's not about genuine connection, but about forming a compelling soundbite on how their trauma supposedly taught them a valuable life lesson. Usually it's some variant of never take life for granted or make the most out of every day.
So it's not about authentic intimacy, it's about creating a predetermined character arc for the audience. And it sounds like a deeply unhealthy model for forming real bonds.
Exactly. And Dr. Springer finds this deeply disturbing from a psychological perspective, as it establishes a terrible model for developing trust or appropriate self-disclosure in intimate relationships. It's an immediate forced vulnerability for the camera. And on the note of producers actively seeking tears, there's an even more shocking example. A runner-up from The Bachelor Season 16, Lindsay Cox, was reportedly bribed with a cheeseburger to cry at the finale.
Wait, what?
A cheeseburger.
A cheeseburger. They literally held food hostage for tears. That's beyond belief. The lengths they'll go to for a dramatic shot.
It really just highlights how far they'll push the boundaries for the most dramatic show ever. And this also ties into an unsettling fact revealed in producer notes from the casting process itself. They apparently favored unstable applicants.
Favored unstable people.
That's what the source suggests. One contestant, Rosalind Papa, even expressed to producers during her screening that her depression should be a red flag and that she shouldn't be cast, but they completely overlooked it, seemingly for the drama it could bring to her season.
It's so focused on entertainment at the expense of genuine mental well-being and, honestly, safety. So, what about the leads, the Bachelor or Bachelorette themselves? How do producers control their narrative? Are they immune to this?
Oh, not at all. They manipulate the leads, too, quite extensively. Producers plan all the date details down to the minute, often subtly encouraging leads to pick certain contestants, pushing them towards a preferred storyline. The leads themselves are frequently in the dark about the specifics of their own dates until just before they happen.
Really? Even the Bachelor or Bachelorette doesn't know what's happening on their own date. They're just showing up.
That's right. Colton Underwood, a former Bachelor, revealed on the podcast This American Life that producers constantly asked him to rank the contestants. He started suspecting they were intentionally keeping his top girls off dates to create more suspense or push him towards someone else.
So he tried to play their game back at them.
He did. So what did he do? He actually tried to outsmart them. He lied, telling them Hannah Goodwin was his #1 choice, when in reality, he preferred Cassie Randolph. He thought he was playing the game.
Oh, this sounds like it's going to go very, very wrong for him.
It did. It completely backfired because producers then positioned Hannah as the undisputed frontrunner and actually made specific efforts to encourage Cassie to leave the show, thinking Colton wasn't that into her.
Oh, no.
So his attempt to gain control just made things exponentially worse for his actual preferred person. It backfired spectacularly.
Wow, that's wild. And then there are these staged interactions, like the infamous girl chats. I always thought those were spontaneous gossip sessions, just women naturally bonding or feuding.
Nope, not at all spontaneous. Girl chats or gossip sessions are explicitly instructed by producers.
Instructed, like, okay, now go talk about her.
Pretty much. And there's always an incentive, Contestants who engage in these chats, especially if they stir up conflict, are often rewarded with perks, like access to technology or special primping sessions. It's a calculated move to create conflict and get those dramatic sound
I
bites.
think that makes sense.
And get this, when a contestant steals the lead for a conversation, it's always approved by our producer.
Always. No spontaneous interruptions.
Nope. It's often a calculated move, especially if the lead is talking to someone feuding with the stealer. They're choreographing the drama.
So those dramatic interruptions we see are all, like, producer-sanctioned and even encouraged. It's not just a spontaneous dramatic impulse.
100%. We saw it, for example, with Sam Nejad interrupting Thomas Neon's conversation with Jen Tran. Or remember Devin Strader bringing an ice cream cart during an interruption.
Oh, yeah, the ice cream cart?
That ice cream cart was an obvious, clear-cut producer manipulation. There's no way he could have just, gotten that on his own in the mansion. They wheeled it in for the moment.
That does make sense, actually. You see those moments and you think, how did that even happen? So a producer literally put an ice cream cart in the mansion for dramatic effect.
Okay. And the pressure to propose, that's a huge part of the show's premise. Is that as real as it seems?
Yeah.
Or just another layer of the game with mystery rules?
It is very real in terms of pressure. While there's no legal requirement for the lead to propose at the end, the entire show's premise, its very foundation, creates this immense, almost unbearable pressure for a proposal. Sean Lowe, a former Bachelor, famously described feeling so much pressure that he was, quote, throwing up and puking on the sidewalk before going to pick out the ring.
Oh my God. Puking.
Yeah, the emotional and physical toll was immense for him.
That's intense. I mean, you'd think picking out an engagement ring would be a happy moment.
It's intense, and it connects to what Shauna Springer, the psychologist, calls psychological priming. The host, for years, Chris Harrison, would ask very early on, sometimes even after the lead had just met the contestants, do you think your future wife or husband is in that room?
Right at the start. Exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't just a friendly question. It actively pushes leads toward a binding, emotionally charged decision to trust one's feelings, which Dr. Springer argues is often faulty logic, especially in such an artificial, high-pressure environment.
So they're kind of priming them for this, like, fairy tale ending, this grand romantic gesture, even if it's not realistic or based on genuine connection, it's about the spectacle.
Exactly. And the show systematically creates what Dr. Springer terms narcissistic fantasies through these incredibly extravagant, once-in-a-lifetime dates. Think performing for thousands of screaming fans, or a private dinner in the middle of the Bellagio fountain in Las Vegas.
Yeah, those dates are unbelievable.
This makes leads feel absolutely amazing, feeling on top of the world, which then leads them to this often false conclusion. This must be love because I feel so amazing when I'm with this person on this extravagant date.
It's a very powerful emotional manipulation. They conflate the high of the experience with the feelings for the person. Wow. Okay, so now that we've pulled back the curtain on how the show manipulates its narrative and its participants, using everything from clever editing to psychological pressure, let's talk about the contestant experience, more than just roses. What is daily life really like for these hopeful romantics living in that mansion? Because it can't be all glamour and champagne, right?
It's far from glamorous, actually, and it's certainly not a vacation. Contestants are under incredibly strict confinement. They're basically stuck in the infamous Los Angeles mansion, which, by the way, is actually owned by a family who lives there for 10 months out of the year and vacates for filming.
Wow, they kick a family out.
Yeah. When the show is filming, they relocate to, rumor has it, the Four Seasons.
So the contestants are just living in someone else's house for 2 months under constant surveillance? That just sounds claustrophobic.
Precisely. And even when they travel abroad for those exotic dates, they're confined to hotels when they're not actually on dates. This constant confinement creates serious cabin fever, intense boredom, and a deep psychological dependence on the lead for any sense of fun, excitement, or even connection. It makes the lead the only source of external stimulation.
I can imagine. Boredom can lead to a lot of drama, which I'm sure the producers absolutely love. And how long are those rose ceremonies for real? Because on TV, it's just a few minutes of dramatic music and handing out flowers.
Oh, they're lengthy. Incredibly so. Rose ceremonies can take up to 12 hours to film.
12 hours?
Yeah, often stretching into the early hours of the next morning. They require many reshoots because, well, people make mistakes, or someone isn't standing in the right spot, or they trip. The lead might even forget names, which is, quite common given the sheer number of contestants.
Right.
Apparently, they sometimes use flashcards off camera to help them remember everyone.
Flashcards for names. That's just wild. And again, so far from the romantic ideal. What other, bizarre daily quirks or bans do they have in the mansion? Any surprising rules?
So many. One strange rule is no eating on camera during dates.
Why not?
This isn't for glamour, but to prevent mouth noises from interfering with the audio. So contestants actually eat beforehand, often in secret.
Oh, practical. Okay.
Another odd one, particularly on Sean Lowe's season, was a ban on books, except for the Bible.
No books, just the Bible.
Yep. Producers apparently decided his season would be void of all time-passing texts, supposedly to encourage more interaction, but it also ramped up the isolation.
So no reading for leisure, no personal downtime with a book, just the Bible. That's quite a choice. Talk about limited distractions.
Indeed. Also a surprising one for a lavish mansion.
Yeah.
No air conditioning.
No AC in L.A.
Apparently not. This isn't supposedly to portray them, but due to sound editing issues with noisy AC units. So imagine being confined, bored, and then also uncomfortably hot for weeks on end. And here's one of my favorites, a truly bizarre rule. No contestant is allowed to use the word process. They must say journey instead.
Journey. Like, this journey has been so intense, or I'm really enjoying my journey with you.
Exactly. It always has to be journey. If they're caught saying process, they have to reshoot it.
Oh.
It's about maintaining the narrative language of the show. And despite a well-stocked kitchen, contestants do their own cooking and laundry.
Wait, they do their own laundry? I just assumed there were, like, staff for all that, given the production scale. That's humbling.
No, that's on them.
Ah.
And another significant daily reality, which often goes unmentioned, contestants have no internet access.
No internet at all.
None. This can make paying bills incredibly difficult, managing external life. They have to set up autopay or give family members access to their accounts. J.J. Lane, a former contestant, said he had to set up auto bill pay and give his parents access to his deposit slips and email passwords in just 2.5 weeks before filming.
Oh my gosh.
The sheer logistical nightmare of preparing for this intense, disconnected experience is immense.
That's a huge logistical nightmare before you even get there. Okay, so they're confined, they're tired, they're doing their own laundry, no internet, being manipulated, and they're not even getting paid for this, are they?
For the most part, no. Contestants are not paid for their participation on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. Their payment is essentially the experience of being on the show and the potential exposure. The only cast member who gets a steady, substantial income is the lead, who typically earns a 6-figure salary.
So the Bachelor, Bachelorette is making serious bank, but everyone else is just living for free, effectively, while competing for love.
Pretty much. There's one other pay incentive, though.
Yeah.
The winning contestant reportedly receives $10,000 per hour if their wedding with the lead is televised on ABC.
Oh, wow. $10,000 an hour for your wedding. That's quite the bonus.
It is. Now, Bachelor in Paradise is a bit different. It has a base pay, reportedly around $400 a day for contestants.
Okay, so Paradise pays something.
Yeah, and more popular contestants can even negotiate for higher lump sums. We heard figures like $20,000 to $30,000 for a few weeks, though this was many seasons ago and likely varies. This is why you often see more well-known or popular contestants arriving later in BIP. They've often negotiated those higher lump sums regardless of how long they stay. It's a strategic entry.
Ah, that explains the strategic arrivals and the varying levels of enthusiasm for Paradise. Makes sense. So what about the ring, that iconic Neil Lane engagement ring? Did they actually get to keep that symbol of everlasting love?
Well, it is a gift from the show, often costing over $75,000, so it's quite a valuable piece of jewelry.
75 grand.
At least, yeah. But there's a significant catch. The couple only gets to keep it if they stay together for 2 years.
2 years.
If they break up before that, it has to be returned to ABC. It's part of the show's asset protection, I suppose.
2 years, okay. That's a pretty specific timeline. Not quite happily ever after if you don't make it to the 2-year mark. And the wardrobe, is that provided? They're always so impeccably dressed for those rose ceremonies.
You'd think, right. But it's almost entirely BYO wardrobe. Bring your own.
No way.
Contestants have to bring all their own clothing, including up to 14 dresses just for rose ceremonies, plus swimsuits and other outfits for dates and daily wear.
14 dresses. That's a lot of shopping.
It is. Some contestants have even gone into debt, taking out loans or maxing out credit cards just to pay for clothes for the show. They do get some goodie bags with accessories upon arrival, but the bulk of the expense is on them.
That's a lot of pressure, especially when you're not getting paid for your time. You're incurring debt to be on the show. And what happens after the show? Is it all like fame and fortune for these individuals, or is there a darker side?
For some, yes, there is a degree of fame and fortune. Many transition into careers as Instagram influencers. Thanks to their instant fan bases, they can earn substantial income, anywhere from $250 to even $10,000 per Instagram post, depending on their follower count and engagement. It's a lucrative path for many.
That's a pretty sweet deal if you can get it, a real post-show career.
It is, but it definitely comes with a serious downside. Intense judgment and relentless cyberbullying from friends, family, and complete strangers online.
Ugh, the trolls.
Exactly. We have some really heartbreaking examples. Rosalind Papa, for instance, was called a bad mother by her own son's teacher due to her portrayal on the show.
Oh, that's awful.
Chris Bukowski's son was targeted by online trolls, which is just appalling. And Caitlin Bristow, a former bachelorette, reported receiving death threats after her season.
Death threats over a reality show.
Yeah. Katie Thurston even felt compelled to tweet about contestant Hunter, urging viewers to be kind because he has Tourette's, highlighting the real-life, often devastating impact of how edits can so quickly create villains and incite online hatred.
That's just beyond horrific. The human cost of engineered drama, isn't it? It makes you really question the line between entertainment and ethical responsibility. This really makes me think about the legal battleground when contracts collide with reality. This is where it gets really, really interesting, specifically with the Blake Horseman case.
Yes, that was a landmark arbitration case, and it truly shone a light on the power dynamics at play. Producers of the Bachelor franchise were awarded $175,000 against Blake Horseman, $150,000 for contract breaches, and an additional $25,000 for arbitration costs.
Wow. $175,000. That's a lot of money to pay out. Why was he specifically targeted? What did he do that crossed the line?
Our sources say Blake, quote, pushed the limits of his contract by appearing on several tell-all podcasts and speaking negatively, often very candidly, about the franchise. He was reportedly on a fuck it, sue me then tear, essentially daring them to come after him, and they did.
Whoa.
He seemed to have reached a breaking point with his portrayal and treatment.
So he essentially knew what he was doing. He understood the risk. And this arbitration award, is that like a regular legal judgment? Does he actually have to pay it?
He absolutely does. Arbitration is a recognized and legally binding part of the U.S. legal system. The award against him is like a full legal judgment, and he has to pay it, or it will go to collections. It's not just a symbolic fine. It's a legally enforceable debt.
Many fans and commentators, though, felt that producers were really vindictive and pick and choose who to pursue legally. I mean, it doesn't seem like everyone who speaks out gets hit with a six-figure bill. What's the reasoning there, do you think?
That's a very common sentiment, and there's definitely a perceived selective enforcement. Critics argue that Blake and Luke P., who also reportedly faced a large payment for similar breaches, were specific naysayers who didn't speak highly of the franchise.
So they made examples of them.
Suggesting these actions are less about universal enforcement and more about a silencing tactic. To make an example, there's even a conspiracy theory that Blake was targeted specifically due to public beef with a particular producer named Nick, who some call a producer puppet.
Ah, office politics maybe?
So it's seen as a personal vendetta by some.
Wow, so it's not just about the contract, but about, like, personal grudges and sending a very public message. That's a whole other layer.
That's the perception, yes. And it's interesting to compare this to other instances. For example, Gabby, from Zach's season, publicly called out the editing on live TV during the After the Final Rose special, saying she was disappointed in what they chose to show.
Right, on live TV.
Exactly. Yet she wasn't sued. This could be due to the public sympathy she garnered, or perhaps simply timing and how the show calculated public perception.
And what about Colton Underwood? He revealed quite a bit of behind-the-scenes tea, too, on a major platform, no less.
He did. Colton Underwood from The Bachelor Season 23 revealed significant BTS details on NPR, which has a much wider, more mainstream audience than Blake's Instagram or a niche podcast.
Right, way bigger audience.
But he wasn't sued either. Caitlin Bristow was also nearly sued for spoiling her season via Snapchat, but she managed to backpedal and avoid it through direct negotiations.
So it really does seem like they pick and choose who to go after, depending on, well, everything from public opinion to producer grudges. What do you think the producer's core motivation is here? Is it purely about protecting their brand and their intellectual property?
It's certainly about brand protection, but it's not just about suing for slander or spreading false information. It's for sharing more than he should, for revealing the inner workings of the game with mystery rules. The goal, it seems, is to make an example out of Blake, especially after his very difficult BIP experience where he felt so manipulated and betrayed. They're asserting total control over the narrative, even after contestants leave the show, reinforcing the NDAs.
So let's talk about these contracts themselves. What exactly are contestants signing away, potentially without even fully understanding it, when they go on the show?
They are signing what lawyers describe as unethical, overreaching, exploitative contracts.
Yeah.
Many contestants, perhaps most, don't fully understand them due to what's described as legalese, verbose, dense, complex legal language.
Yeah, that stuff is hard to read.
These contracts explicitly state that production can use footage to edit their image in any way they see fit, granting them immense power. And crucially, they contain ironclad non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, and mandatory arbitration clauses, like the one Blake faced. They also reportedly require contestants to follow all of producers' rules, directions, and instructions in all matters, including participant selection.
Edit their image in any way they see fit. That's a terrifying clause when you think about it, given the frankenbiting and reframing we discussed earlier. What's the core dilemma for contestants then? What happens if they object to these terms?
The dilemma is profound and, quite frankly, asymmetrical. They are advised to have lawyers review the contracts, but many don't, or simply can't afford the legal fees for such scrutiny.
Right, lawyers aren't cheap.
The stark reality is, if a contestant pushes back or doesn't sign, someone else will. This dynamic gives Big Corp Warner Bros. And ABC almost all the power. And breaking an NDA without solid legal advice is a huge risk, as Blake found out.
So if you want to be on the show, if you want that chance at fame or love, you just kind of have to bite the bullet and sign away pretty much everything.
Pretty much. It's a take-it-or-leave-it situation for most. Lawyers argue that smart contestants would litigate the contract itself, meaning go after unfair clauses or try to invalidate them in court, rather than simply violating it and facing arbitration.
Fight the contract itself, not just break it.
Exactly. This could potentially set a precedent to help other contestants, but it requires significant legal effort, considerable resources, and a willingness to become a public legal battle. The counter-argument, of course, is that if you argue the contract, producers will just pick someone else who is willing to sign.
It's a real catch-22, a powerful deterrent. Does the contract extend to post-show opportunities as well, like what they can do after their season airs?
Yes, it absolutely can. For example, Mike Fleiss, the show's creator, allegedly used the contract to keep Caitlin Bristow off Dancing with the Stars for some time after her season, which some saw as sexist and punitive.
Wow, blocking other TV appearances.
Yeah. And Blake Horstman reportedly wanted to return to BIP Season 7 to reunite with Becca Kufrin, but he was turned down by producers. It was after this rejection that he started, quote, complaining about the show and sharing more details. There were even rumors about Blake trying to manipulate narratives with Becca Kufrin and Gabby Wundy from Bachelorette Season 18 after the show for his own benefit. The contract's reach extends far beyond the final rose.
So it's not just about keeping silent about what happened on the show, but also about controlling what they do after the show and even how they interact with other alums. That's an incredible amount of control, isn't it? Like a permanent leash. Okay, so we've delved into the manipulations, the contestant experience, the legal battles. This all leads to one core question, doesn't it? Is this really love, or is it just good TV? And what does good TV mean for the people involved?
And this is where the consistent thread emerges from all our sources. Producers only care about creating drama for ratings and not the contestants themselves.
Yeah.
That's the absolute bottom line.
Ratings.
Pretty much. There's even a story about a former executive producer who reportedly kept $100 bills in his pocket to hand out to producers who managed to capture particularly tense or dramatic scenes.
Wow, cash bonuses for drama. That certainly incentivizes stirring the pot and pushing those emotional buttons.
Absolutely. The ultimate aim is endlessly entertaining scenarios generated by colliding chemically altered people together, meaning people who are sleep-deprived, emotionally vulnerable, perhaps a little tipsy, and isolated. It's a psychological playbook designed not for lasting love, but purely for compelling television.
So it's engineered conflict.
Shauna Springer, the psychologist we mentioned earlier, describes the show as, quote, a case study in how to create an unsustainable relationship.
An unsustainable relationship. That's a pretty damning assessment of a show that presents itself as a search for true love. So they're actively trying to manufacture feelings, not just document them.
It's exactly. The show attempts to manufacture feelings of love through a highly curated environment of psychological priming, extreme isolation, and high-stakes scenarios. And the constant focus on trusting one's feelings in such an artificial environment is seen by experts as, quote, faulty logic.
Because the feelings aren't based on reality.
Right. These intense experiences are designed to mimic the rush of true love, not to foster it.
And are the contestants really all there for love, or are some of them also, on the good TV part playing a different game?
Well, it's not a monolithic group. Not everyone is there for love. Some contestants have openly admitted to seeking fame, a career boost, or, as Andy Dorfman humorously admitted, even just free drinks.
Ha! Free drinks.
Take Jed Wyatt, for example, who was engaged to Hannah Brown but famously had a girlfriend back home the entire time, all while overtly trying to boost his music career.
Oh, the Jed situation was messy.
Very. Or Rachel Lindsay, a former bachelorette, who had an awkward date where producers literally asked her to send the guy home immediately because, and I quote, "we can't even edit it to make it look like he likes you."
That's incredibly blunt. They just gave up on the narrative there.
Ashley Akinetti, a very popular alum, openly admitted that people go on the show because they know it can launch or significantly help their career. Andy Dorfman, as I said, went on for free drinks and an experience. And Thomas Jacobs, while he did later find love with Becca Kufrin on Paradise, initially admitted on his season of The Bachelorette that he came on for the possibility of being the next Bachelor.
Right, using it as an audition tape.
So it's a very clear mix of motives, clearly,
Right.
and not all of them are romantic.
So with all this manipulation and these varied motives, what's the actual success rate of these love stories that are supposed to be the core of the show?
It's extremely low. Shockingly low. Contestants spend very little actual one-on-one time with the lead, around 72 hours maximum, over several weeks before the final rose ceremony.
72 hours total, that's nothing.
Barely. Ali Fidotowsky, a former bachelorette, stated quite frankly that you can't really get to know a person in that time frame. And the show's low success rate for lasting relationships is telling. Out of 28 bachelors, only Sean Lowe actually married his final choice. Only one.
Only 1 out of 28.
Yeah.
That's not a great batting average for true love finding its way on reality television. And what about the emotional cost to the contestants? We've touched on it, but how deep does that devastation go?
The emotional devastation and gut-wrenching pain of the heartbroken and emotionally damaged contestants is consistently portrayed as the only truly real element of the show, and it can be severe and lasting. Remember the Kaylin Blake BIP debacle that we touched on earlier?
Yeah, that sounded awful.
Our sources suggest producers isolated a woman they knew was a sexual assault survivor and fed her lies about Blake, then edited clips to make it sound like she was accusing him of something far worse than happened. This resulted in, quote, suicidal ideations for both of them due to the intense public backlash and the psychological toll.
That's incredibly disturbing. To intentionally cause that level of distress, to push people to that point, all for entertainment. It's a pretty horrifying consequence.
It really does speak to the lengths producers will go for ratings. And interestingly, our sources point out that quite often, the shrapnel of a disastrous love collision from this season's show may become next season's star in a rebound relationship scenario that endlessly repeats itself.
So the breakup becomes the setup for the next season's lead.
Exactly. It's a calculated cycle designed for continued content and new seasons, not necessarily for individual well-being or romantic success. The trauma becomes the fuel for the next iteration.
So the show essentially profits from the fallout, perpetuating a cycle of dramatic collapse. How do the producers defend all of this, given the ethical concerns that seem to pop up everywhere in this deep dive?
Some argue that the editing is primarily for viewer enjoyment and that it doesn't genuinely cause lasting harm, that it's just TV. The franchise, they'd say, has perfected the art of skirting the line of taking things too far, always balancing the drama with plausible deniability.
Skirting the line.
However, many, including former staff members, strongly disagree, believing, and I quote, "It's only a matter of time before a producer or editor crosses the line and frankenbiting victims bite back. Perhaps not legally, but in terms of public perception, finally shifting."
That's a powerful thought, that there might be a reckoning coming. So to recap everything we've unpacked today, it's pretty clear that The Bachelor and The Bachelorette are highly, highly manufactured, right? Far from the spontaneous romantic facade they present on screen.
Absolutely. We've seen the intricate layers of manipulation, from the editing room to the direct producer intervention, the often exploitative contractual obligations, and the very real emotional toll on contestants. It's a stark contrast to the fairy tale that's so meticulously put on screen for millions to consume.
So for you, our listener, What does this deep dive mean for your viewing experience? Does understanding all this behind-the-scenes manipulation change how you watch the show?
Wow.
We really encourage you to be a critical viewer. Next time you're watching, try listening to the pitch and spacing to spot potential frankenbiting. Really pay attention to those audio edits. Try to see the strings being pulled.
It's important to remember that while it's entertainment, it's worth acknowledging the complex and often challenging reality behind the scenes. Knowing all of this just adds another layer to the experience. It allows you to appreciate the show for what it truly is rather than what it pretends to be.
It certainly does. So given everything we've unpacked about how The Bachelor and The Bachelorette are produced, the manipulations, the psychological tactics, the real-world consequences, what does it say about our appetite as an audience for traumatic reality? And how much reality do we truly expect from our entertainment anyway? Something to think about.
For your next journey, of course.